Uh, I think it's the accidental synchronicity of things. Like if you make a thing and it turns out it's just like some other thing. Like how I did that with Space Girl on accident because I didn't know it was like basically Milk Chan. And before I knew what Milk Chan was, I was gonna name Space Girl Miruki, like as in Milky Way or something. But it's like that like that like blew my mind because like I just kept like hitting the same node over and over again, except the fact that my Yossi's not a baby. But it was basically the same thing. Her name is Zeta now, but I don't know. That might still. But it's not like a bad thing. That's just part of the magic of like what happens when you're dealing with a medium that's made up of as many variables as there is like aspects of human consciousness. And eventually some of them are going to line up. But if you keep hitting the same node over and over again, if you're really, really riding a wave like consistently, then it can almost seem like supernatural. And I think it's fair to, it's complete, you should just kind of submit to the magic of that. For example, like you make something in the essence or just in memory, not even in memory, just like in tribute of a kind of vibe. And then you overlay something that's relative to that vibe and you're like, this lines up perfectly. Kind of like what I did with that, where it has the 10 Sephiroth. Really, this is a hidden 11th one because I did add Doth in there, but there's like that thing, that symbol is all over Ava, and like Ava, no matter how many times they say it's like the symbolism was irrelevant to. That only appeals to people who don't care about that stuff and think it's cringe, and that gives them some kind of license to say like, oh, thank God, I don't have to. They don't feel compelled to like shift their perspective. They don't feel compelled to think that their perspective might be like they need to have anything more to enjoy what they watch now. Ava's an insanely like intrinsic show, so you can watch that any way you want and get the point. In fact, I think watching Ava out of context in the form of like a music video would probably get you would understand the point of Ava even better. I think the lore, I think some of the aspects in between the parts, but like before you get to end of Ava, it really doesn't. It kind of distracts from what it is. Like it's not. At least if you're asking me. Like you kind of like completely understand the format of what Ava was if you get all of like the highlight parts and just like compile it in like screenshots and like A and V type things, and it's like the point of it is illustrated so clearly just through its visual intensity. But a big part of it was the fact that they were utilizing a lot of those. They were using like the Tree of Life, like 2 different forms of it, and that was like. Among so many other symbols, they used them perfectly. So I can't say they didn't care. If you blindfold yourself and you pass the test, I can't say that. I mean, it's just not a probability thing because Ava was something that took a lot of time to craft. So it wasn't even just like a shot in the dark. It was a shot in the dark for like years at a time, and there was a lot of hands on it as well, and a lot of consideration and thought going into a pitch for it as well. I think so, like, even if that was still coincidental, because honestly it's not appealing to most audiences, even back in the 90s, to tell someone that there's a lot of meaning behind whatever you made. It is more appealing to say, like, it didn't mean anything, because then it frees up, it gives your mind free range to just think it was anything. And people like that sort of nebulousness. But even if it wasn't deliberate, it still proves my like theory of like, if you, because I mean those symbols of the Sephiroth, those were illustrated. That was an art form. That philosophy was crafted into an art form, and that symbol, just like all art, you know, it says just one little image says 1,000 words. There's a lot to say about those things, and they do have intrinsic and extrinsic meaning. And even having, I think when you're like linguistic and you're more book heavy by the book, you'll be a little more stupid about how you approach like art in that direction, because you'll need things to be laid out to you because you don't have any other connection to it otherwise. But an artist, just inherently, if you just like we're more honed in on like Rorschachs, you know. We can very easily attribute meaning to things that would otherwise be abstract. That's part of the form. It's part of the form of this art. But because that's also a part of your assessment and analysis, your artistic analysis is also a part of the many different set variables for human consciousness to express itself. Something like those symbols, I mean, it wasn't used on accident. It was appealing because even just the overall form, without knowing anything about it, can derive something. Like there's been a lot of times where you could just sort of pick something just because, like, well, I just like how that looks, but then you like look up something about it and you're like, wow, this synced up with me. This was actually like perfectly resonating. Well, I think that's how nature's supposed to work. That's what instinct is. Making logic out of it slows the process down. In fact, you're supposed to just, in a natural sequence, you take upon yourself to just deal with instinct, do the thing that you feel compelled to do, and then you give it explanation and language afterwards. So that's a sequence of it's supposed to be. But people who start with logic and then end with instinct, they use logic to craft instinct. They deal with digesting things backwards, basically. With the artist, it's always just like, this is the spur of the moment, bam, and some way, somehow, it does synchronize with something else. And like I was saying with how something I created was almost completely down to just even the name choice or even color choices to someone else's creation. Two artists that don't know each other, that have a craft that they're completely, they're like worlds apart or whatever. They can come up with similar ideas, so there's a good chance that the sort of wherever Anno's head was very likely in resonance and in sequence with the other kind of things that artists of, like philosophical artists that were creating the symbols for the Tree of Life were also on. They were probably also like dealing with that same headspace, but just in a different context. You know, I think a lot of things about human characteristics and personalities are everlasting. I think those are independent variables. I think the dependent variable is just what point in time you exist in, and like that contextualizes the style of the behaviorism, but the nature and the heart behind it never changes. So in this instance, when I was crafting like this Rei Ayanami thing, it was different from a lot of the other ones that I had done before, but this one was definitely more, I tried to pack more sincerity into this one. And as someone who did study a lot of like metaphysics, those are things that are always in mind, and like subconsciously, you know, because I do understand like I do inherently understand the necessity for like aligning an illustration properly to get the eyes to have a lot of I don't know, it's like a convergence theory, or if you craft something with certain gestures, it allows your eyes to sort of map the details of the illustration in a certain way. Or you can even hide details for like those who are looking a little longer. You know that if they're paying more attention, they'll see these details. If you're not paying that much attention, you'll see this detail. So you're basically crafting it based on like frequencies, right? The frequency of time and like a registration. In this instance, the only thing I did do was use a line that struck the middle of the canvas. I just wanted to make sure everything was centered. And then I was just going to do my own thing from there, and it was just going to be blatant instinct. And I've done a lot of drawings like that where it was just blatant instinct, just like, okay, give me just this one pinpoint I want to focus on, and that was just aligning it straight up and down, make it centralized. And then everything else I do, I don't know, my passions just sort of like spill out into whatever the hell that is. Like, so I mean, I just get taken over by the thing, and I let it do its thing. I craft it and I hone it, and I finish it up, and then I can reevaluate it, and then it can become a thing where I'm like, oh wow, that actually that lines up with this, that. I've done that with so many things that I made, and I know for a fact if I can do that, then it happens to a lot of other, like, more high level artists. It probably happens to them more often, if anything, you know. And people will have to like switch their idea because they wouldn't consider it as significant, because if it wasn't intentional, then it's like, well, it's just like Santa Claus or something. It's just some tooth fairy logic. But no, I mean, it's supposed to just be like embracing the magic of the arts. But I think most consumers are looking at things through like they're from their left brain, from like a sense of like a lack of instinct. So they will need more excuses to connect with something than just capturing a vibe and then just letting that do its thing, evaluating it later. And you never have to say anything definitively this way or that way, but I mean, that's more of a personal problem. Some people don't like when you say things are this way or that way definitively, even though the inherent truth is just like, that's just what they believe. But I think perspective can be shared. I think people can kind of come to an agreement that one thing was like a specific thing. There's a commonality in in these sort of things, especially when you have enough people that like resonate with a certain property. They do sort of their observation of that thing does sort of redefine what that is. It gives it life. It's what's that particle theory thing where it's like as soon as you observe something, the shape of it, the shape of the particles, or like the atomic structure changes. Well, I mean, collective idea of something that's made is sort of the same way, and it can be shifted based on how well it was the message was delivered, I guess. But honestly, this is more just about like it's almost irrelevant, because this is more just about my personal feelings about what I like about Ava, and then the symbology around it, and the fact that like regardless of anything, I 100% didn't consciously keep the 10 Sephiroth in mind. But when I overlaid it, not only did it align properly, but even the meanings of each part align properly to where these, like, look at that. Rey's head is perfectly fitted within that circle. It's perfectly spherical, which I absolutely didn't mean to do. And a lot of that was attributed to the way that I crafted the shadows. And most of the things I do artistically have nothing to do with like what I think would be right. It's just like what I know would be right is what I think would be right. It's what I feel is like instinctively I'm like, it would look more like this. I can't explain it because it would take time to explain it. There's no point to explain it. Just do what I think is right and then just put it there. And then lo and behold. But even when I overlaid everything, I was like, okay, I'm somewhat familiar with a lot of these meanings here. And where the imaginary one, not even imaginary one, but Dot, the one that they don't normally put in a Sephiroth. You usually just have the 10, but that's the 11th or whatever. That perfectly fits where the dark sphere, that orb is. I mean, It's those kinds of things I have an absolute passion for. There's people who have a passion for that work in music and notice the same things. Where like something can just come out of them, but it can also mean so many different things to people. But in general, having two artistic values or multiple artistic values that you have within yourself and you express it, and then it just somehow lines up with something that you weren't even trying to do. Like that happens a lot to people. That happens a lot to certain creators where they weren't meaning to create something that had that kind of meaning or that punctuation, but it just happened to hit that note so properly that it gathered like the people who would like be drawn to that, to a vortex like that. And there's a lot of value in that. There's a lot of value in accidental synchronicity, and that's kind of what a lot of artists bank on. That's one of the biggest reasons why these people who are like creative, who want to be in a specific headspace indefinitely, they kind of want to have their own chamber to just go as mad or be as like synced in with their own thing as possible. Because you never know what little tiny butterfly effect of your mood, or however you feel, however you're observing things at any given moment, might inspire something and come right out of you. And even just the aspect of like, when are you going to make something that has this level of value versus that level of value versus... I noticed with myself that usually the best things come at like almost cyclical parts of the month. Which is even crazier to say, but I guess that's the point of this, is just to embrace that craziness, because who cares? Whatever. Everyone has something crazy, who cares? But like, I do notice like certain times of like, certain moon phases definitely, like not even thinking about it, but like I would just have like a spark to create something, and I'd be like, oh, that's interesting. I would look at what it is, what the phase is that day. Whether I'm like looking up online because the moon's not out yet, or I'm actually going outside and I'm like, oh, okay. For whatever reason, if it's like usually in like a waxing position or something, it's a lot easier for me to like do something, which is, makes sense if you care about like lunar shit or whatever. Waxing is usually a time for activity, waning's for rest. But it's kind of unfortunate because I've like, it's been years and I have yet to break that. And it's not even like a thing I do on purpose, it's always been that way. Even when I was like young and I didn't really have any audience, I didn't even ever want to use social media. I thought it all sucked. Like I would draw very rarely. I would do like doodles like once every few months. I never really committed to anything like that, but I would notice when it would kind of come out of me. And this has only been one of the only times I had to like, I guess in my arc, I've had to like push myself to like put more stuff out, which has been very obnoxious, which is also part of the issue that I wanted to avoid when I was young, being like, oh, now it's all homogenized. I'm not even illustrating based on the right vibe anymore. And which is also important because you want to be able to keep your intentions for how you're making and what you're making as pure as possible. But man, I don't know, all this to say is I'm insanely proud of what I made. That illustration's really cool. And I don't know if I'll ever top it, honestly. I don't know if I'm gonna top it, just because of the atmosphere of it. Because it was just something. When did I really come up with it? I think it's just sort of I just had it in my mind. There's been a lot of things about Ava I've kept in mind. I think I'm trying to like. I think I'm trying to make up for something. I'm trying to make up for the fact that I've like only really put like smut hours into it instead of just like commemorating what I loved about it. Because I think a lot of people do the most obnoxious thing possible and like don't for us like I mean it's one thing to sort of just take advantage of like the more superficial aspect of some kind of a property, and it's a whole other thing to like I don't know, not make up for it or something. So like there's a whole other thing to just be like, okay, I do get it, and here's my tribute to getting it on like at least another level, on like a better, like a more like a better level or something. It's just it is frustrating to like. To me, it's just like well, you know, also testing capabilities. I think the way that this was crafted was has a lot more talent in it, a lot more of what I don't normally use in it, and a lot more of what I've been talking about. I was gonna start implementing more into my works and all of this, and they're taking a lot longer to do. Like this one and the Oscar, like the Unit 2 one, took like 2 days to make because it was in between of just like screwing around like this, just with a bunch of tabs of crap, just to create an easy environment to just sort of like relax my mind and let something flow. And then I don't know, just the overall, the fact that it wasn't like it wasn't something I've done before. That's also another thing. And there's so much detail packed into them, and there was like more detail than I really wanted to. But overall, I do like them. I think I like the Ray one better though. The Unit 2 one has a lot of action in it, but the Ray one, as of right now, mainly because of just what I've realized. I'm like, you know what? Because it was just on a whim. That was just like an hour ago. I was like, I didn't do it again, did I? I didn't accidentally make this thing like perfect for other things I like. And here it is. But I'm sure what I was thinking of. No, I think I have been in sort of in my mind of like, I don't know if I want to call it art director mode, but that's kind of what it is. Where if I'm listening to certain music, I do just have like visions. I visualize what would be good for that. And a lot of times I visualize things that I've not seen yet, or things that I've seen but not in that position, not posed like that or whatever. So that's usually what inspires me to even get it done, because I'm like, well, it has to exist now. It has to exist. I want to be an extension of like that vibe and try to give it more and more shit to it. I think I did pretty good. And it helps that I've been kind of in the mood for something like what I made too. But I mean, bearing the weight on the significance of accidental synchronicity, I think that's something that I should make a more refined video about that. I plan on it. But I think it would just be nice to have. I need to like. That's why I fucking put this on, because I was like, I need to like, while I'm walking around and just talking out loud, I need to like have it set somewhere in like the sort of rough draft brain spillage sort of way. It took me a couple times to even like say anything while the camera was on, because once the camera's on, I hate it, because I feel like I'm being I feel like when a kid's on the spot, you like hand them a microphone or something, and you're just like, it feels unnatural. It's more natural if I was like talking to somebody, basically. I think there's so much At least as far as vibes go, I think there's so much to this thing that like just doesn't get utilized. I think there's a lot of no matter what, Ava was like baiting a lot of like symbol heavy stuff. It was baiting sort of an idea that it has a significance in that direction, and even if it was imaginary by the authors or whatever, it doesn't matter as long as you feel it. It's real, and you can make it sort of real. The significance is just the emotional value. So I mean, if you make something interesting out of that, then that's all that really matters. And I feel like that's what I did. And it's like, I don't know. I like seeing that for myself, but I also sort of mourn the fact that it's not something I commonly see either. And it kind of makes you worried that like, if people aren't willing to commemorate that side of what you've made, then is there a point in making it? And that's probably why you don't see a lot of it anymore. Like a lot of shows doing that, because for one, they're probably too corny to get it right, and two, they probably just think like, well, this is just going to be completely superfluous. People aren't going to care, you know. It'll be in front of their face, but it'll be out of their mind, so it's basically out of sight. Whatever's not in your sight is going to be, whatever you don't register or recognize in your sight is going to be out of your mind. So it's a good way to hide a lot of stuff. And like I said, there's like way too many people out there who just like want to take the more practical approach to watching something that's not really meant to be practical. That's like a form of like mental hijack. That's a form of like thematic hijacking I hate. Like, it's too nihilistic. It's too boring. It's too annoying. It's too discouraging too. It's very exclusionary to those who would like care and can care in a cool way. I don't know, at this point I feel like I'm supposed to just keep talking because I don't know what else to. I feel like this is a very cheap format right now. I feel like this is stupid, but it's cool because I'm doing it. I don't know. I really do. I really want to make things like. I really want to pave the way, help people. Like encourage. I really wish like I don't know. My pool was a little bit more consistent, because I would love to like encourage a trend of like. I don't know. Draw something that's like in your feelings, I guess. I feel like a lot of illustrations that I see all over the place is just like, what's the word? It's like serotonin deficient crap. Not saying that it's deficient of like giving you serotonin. I just mean like if you are serotonin deficient, what people make will probably be the thing that you like, where it's just sort of it's just lowbrow cutesy stuff, and I'm just like I'm willing to like dog on it at this point because I've done so much of it, but I had the desire and will to mix it up, and it's sort of annoying that like it's kind of, to me, because I do like the sense of community I'm supposed to feel, but like to me it's like when you're on a trip and there's a lot to see on that trip and you enjoy one part of the trip that everyone's on, and you're like, all right, let's do the next thing together, and they're not moving on. It's annoying, you know. It kind of makes you wonder, where, okay, well, where is everybody? There's just more of a dynamic. I feel like that muscle shouldn't atrophy. That muscle for that sort of thing shouldn't atrophy, because like, when you draw something that's in your feeling, whether it's good or bad or angry or sad or something, it's like it's going to be more unique than like things AI can use, you know, which is just inventing one's own extinction for no reason, you know. Obsolescence is one of the greatest evils there is. Rendering anything that's not supposed to be obsolete is bad. You know, it's like I said, the whole redundancy thing, I think that's not something I would draw every day, you know, which is why it came out so cool. why it also took some time to even make. Also, I did a commission in between that, so, but one that it doesn't have an NDA on it. I didn't sign anything, but I would prefer that, you know, that I seem like a trustworthy source for these people. So, you know, I did a commission for some more shit that, you know, someone else has to put out before I put it out. And it wasn't really too big. The file was huge, though. So the attention to detail there was, like, kind of annoying to deal with, which also took, like, 2 days. And I don't know why things are taking 2 days now. But when it's on a bigger canvas, it's harder to deal with all the details, to, like, fill in gaps and stuff. And it's supposed to be, this particular thing is supposed to matter a bit more since it'll be seen and stuff. And who's to say what other edits I have to do to it? I don't know. The guys have to get back to me with their level of satisfactory or anything like that. I probably should have charged them more, but, you know, when it gets to the certain territories, I'm like, I don't know. Based on the business I've done with them before, I'm like, I don't think it'll be fair for me to just start switching it up like that. They might see it in bad faith, and they'll be like, okay, fine, we'll take our business elsewhere. So I'm like, no. So I kept it fair, but it should have been. I should have got more out of it. So I'm kind of impressed I was able to even get this out this month, because otherwise, I feel like each drawing sort of makes me feel like I pass out. Especially this one, Jesus Christ. Like, what am I even gonna do after that one? I don't know if I'll top it. I'll probably just do something else. I want to just draw something that takes it easy or something, but part of me ends up thinking like, I did something cheap again. Should have tried harder. But there's just so much more value in doing stuff like this sometimes, you know? Man. It'd be really cool to see more stuff like this come out from people. Yeah. Encouraging that sort of freight train would be awesome. I mean, every so often you have artists be like, oh, event drawing, might delete, sorry. I mean, those are bad. I don't like those. Reason why is because I can tell they were so pent up. It was about to be. It's basically just a cry for help or something. But I'm like, the most constructive thing to do with your destructive appetite is to make something fucking. It's just like, I don't know. Learn to calm down and put it in the thing, and make something you don't feel like you need to delete. Then just don't share it. You know. I guess there is something to be said. I guess maybe a lot of the things that artists do make that seem kind of lowbrow and repetitive, that might be their feelings. That might be the deepest well of themselves that exists. I'm probably giving them too much credit. That might just be it. But I mean, I don't know. No, there's a lot. There's like thousands. There's millions of these people. I don't know. There's be more to it than that. Or maybe the issue is that because there's so many things I want to explore that I'm not seeing too many people explore themselves. I think there's a lot of people who kind of maintain one theme consistently, which is whatever. I mean, that's more beneficial. That's like better to do. I don't know. I feel like I've talked to a lot of different people who have done what I've done before, but they don't end up doing what I'm doing now, you know. They either stay one way or the other, and I'm like, I don't know, there's some people dropping off like flies as of recent. And I can guarantee you it's because of the monotony. And it's because they probably saved up enough money to just stop for a little bit. And they can also feel like, creative people are kind of dying out. They're sort of becoming more. They're starting to enter a realm where they're feeling a little more obsolete because of whatever other developments that are coming through. But it'll never die. The last vestige, I guess the last resort for all artists and all creative people is simply to entertain themselves, and nothing else will come out of it, which is a shame. It means there will probably be very like a lack of production of anything. No one's going to see anything. It'll just all be within this one center mass of people who just create things, and they also consume what other people create. It's kind of like how Newgrounds is. They seem more appreciative of stuff, but they're all creatives, which means they're also not really paying for any of it. There's ways that you can get big on Newgrounds and have it kind of monetized through like YouTube or whatever, something. It happens. It always happens. But there's not too many rules to it. You know, that place seems to appreciate just about anything. And that's you know, I'll always mention that. It's a sigh of relief. It's great. It's always been great. But I can't help but think about that inevitability. I kind of can't help but think about where we'll all be at, just for our own sake. Well, like, I think, because again, the path of the artist always leads to like creating tree of life symbols and stuff like that, and things congruent to it. That's really what it's all about. Eventually, no matter what level, what grade of artist you are, that's like the energy that you've taken on, the thing that you inherited. That's where it comes from. That's where it wants to go back to. Stuff that's in sync with that sort of thing. Things that are embedded in like life mimicking art, art mimicking life, and there's just the bond between those two things. I think it'll be in. I mean, that's just where it has to be, and it'll be organic as well. But who's to say? Organic mechanisms, organic things might just have to take a plunge underground, just for its own sake of, you know, just like when leaves fall off a tree for the autumn, it goes into dormancy. All the energy goes to the bottom, right underground to the bottom of the trunk, right where the roots are. It takes hibernation. So you'll start seeing more and more people taking hiatuses and stuff because of the kind of things I've been talking about. It's just inevitable. It has to happen. Because no matter what kind of art you're making, no matter why you're making it, if you are doing it organically, you're on a set course to be in resonance with truth. And any inner truth that they have, where they're like, tired of this, or what so have you, that inevitably has to take shape and it has to do something. That ultimately, that last little part of them, that tiny part of them has to win. It'll have its day. It always does. It always does. They always pop off or something. So there's something always happens. And I can't wait to see it happen in a big, big way. I already did. I already had my turn a couple of times. Now I'm sort of in a resurrection mode, trying to see very slowly but surely, trying to finish this last little bit to see if I can keep going on with what I'm making now. And any sign of a relapse to old stuff, it's not impossible, but it wouldn't make sense. It wouldn't make that much sense to me as of right now. Because I'm only now really starting to hit my stride for the kind of things that I wanted to express anyways. Self-expression is very important. But what's also important is, like, I don't know, being able to live off of that too. Which many people can, so I don't see why I can't. I was for a little bit. But it wasn't really my self-expression. Well, it was a self-expression of, like, one format or another, but, you know, then the convenience of advertising started changing. So I wasn't sure how to fix that. Which is an issue I think some other artists are facing, but the ones I'm talking about specifically, the ones who are doing fine in that aspect, like getting their stuff out there money-wise and then advertising and all this, demographic appeal. Just saying, they're gonna stop. Oh yeah, they're gonna have to. They're just gonna have to take it. They're just gonna stop. Eventually, they'll just have to be like, I'm done. I'm done, or I'm switching things up. You'll see that a lot more. For whatever reason, it doesn't really matter the reason. I just know that's what'll happen. So, don't you like this thing? Hold on, I can't show it. It's cool, right? It's small. These are cheap. It's like $30, but they sound really good. One audio. I don't know how to twist it. Something like that. That's just a slight update on like room shit. Like setup shit. Cause I had a Blue Yeti, but now I have this Rode right here. I'm like, okay, it's small, it's compact, it's out of the way. I wish I had that to begin with. I wish this was my first pick. I really do. Yeah. Well, that's it, because I started talking about a mic, so there's like nothing else here. Okay.